Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Brenda. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. Welcome to those of you here in the room, and to those of you who are live streaming this morning at home or wherever you are. My name is Char Priolo, and I will be your worship host today. It's great to be with you. Our guest preacher this morning is Bruce de Ste Croix, who will be reading a sermon that Rev. Kate shared with us many years ago. We think it bears repeating. Thank you, Bruce. Before we begin our service, I have a few announcements to share. Today at 5 p.m., we will be hosting a fundraising concert for Ukraine. Donations will be divided between the International Rescue Committee and Rev. Kate's missionary friends in Moldova, who have been hosting Ukrainian refugees in their home and in their church. The concert is a piano concert by John Thomas and will feature Ukrainian tunes. It's also a chance for you to sit quietly and pray for peace. We hope you join us, either here in the sanctuary live or live streaming on YouTube on the Sundays at 5 page, not our own. Sundays at 5 on YouTube. And now, let's take a moment to affirm our Meetinghouse covenant. I'll say a line and then you repeat it to me. Love is the spirit of this Meetinghouse.
Love is the spirit of this Meetinghouse.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another.
And to help one another.
Now it's time to light our chalice. As we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle wherever you are. And in this way we can feel connected, even while we're apart. Our chalice lighting words are adopted from the words of Calvin Dame. Come, let us be joined in seeking the aspirations of the heart. Come, let us be joined in giving voice to those melodies which can heal the wounded soul. Come, let us be joined in listening for the voice that calls us again and again to engage with the world and to be blessed by it. Do we have different scripts? Bruce.
That's when you patch things together. Please join me now in a spirit of meditation and prayer. If you have a joy or sorrow on your heart during this morning, you are welcome to light a silent candle during the prayer or at any time during the service at the table to the right of the pulpit. And there is a journal there to record your thoughts and prayers. Our peacemaking prayer this morning was written a number of years ago by Eric Cherry, but it seems very apt this morning. We've simply updated the place of conflict. The rest holds. The history is complex. The politics are intense. The fear and anger are overwhelming, and the future is unclear. But glimpses of a hopeful vision will not be bombed into oblivion by anyone. In prayer, we call to mind the peacemakers, neighbors of differing faiths, with different histories, with different politics, with different emotions. We find room for each in their hearts, in their dreams, and in their lives. Those who hold firmly to a vision of peace and justice anywhere in the world, but especially today in Ukraine. Spirit of life and love, be present with all who are suffering terribly from the violence in Ukraine. Lift up the hearts of those who fear and inspire courage among the peacemakers. Be present with the political leaders, ensuring a retreat from violence and a procession towards the peace table. Guide the hands of all those who are caring for the injured, the hungry, and the grieving. And open our own hearts to compassion. Remind us of our complicity and responsibility. And lead us towards a generous engagement, always towards a vision of peace. Amen.
Our reading today is adopted from the Children's Story Garden, a Quaker story collection from the 1920s. One day, the little boy ran indoors from school and called out eagerly, "Oh, Mom, what do you think of Tom Jones? I've just heard that." "Wait a minute, my boy," she interrupted. "Have you put what you've heard through the 3 sieves before you tell it to me?" "Sieves, Mommy? What does that mean?" "Well, the first sieve is called truth. Is it true?" "Well, I don't really know," said the son, "but Bob Brown said that Charlie told him that Tom—" "That's very roundabout," said his mother. "What about the second sieve? Kindness. Is it kind?" "Kind. No, I can't say it's kind." "Now, the third sieve then? Necessary. Will it go through that? Must you tell this tale? Will it help? No, no, Mother, he admitted, it won't help. Well then, my boy, if it's not necessary, not kind, and perhaps not even true, let's allow the story to die. And that's just what they did. Now is the time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org, or it will be shown on the screen for you live streaming. On and off site, your offerings will now be gratefully received. Thank you, Mary and Brenda.
If we are there for each other, that together together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And maybe we'll find true peace of mind if we always remember we can be kind.
Thank you, Mary. That was very beautiful. As Shar mentioned earlier, this sermon is one originally delivered by Reverend Kate a number of years ago. It's called, Will It Help? I've been thinking about the power of words lately. Particularly, I've been contemplating how we communicate culturally about the power of words. How we pass on wisdom about the best ways to communicate. How we call attention to hurtful ways of communicating. How we train ourselves to be good communicators. Some little sayings came to mind that we teach to children about how to protect ourselves against the words of others. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I'm rubber, you're glue. Everything you say bounces off me and sticks on you. Remember those? I spent some time this week wondering how these sayings first came into being. But it's not hard to imagine. An upset child comes home crying to a parent or older sibling after someone on the schoolyard has called him names. Or maybe a rumor was spread about him. The child is heartbroken, and the kind-hearted grandmother or uncle tries to make him feel better by equipping him with a saying to diminish the power of words. And although they do their best with these little rhymes, they do so because they know that words do have power. Words do hurt, intentionally and unintentionally. They know, too, that sharing information gives us power, that speaking the quickest or the loudest gives us power. And it's not just clever little sayings that we have developed to express the power of words. Cultures and religions all over the world have developed stories to tell, to teach lessons about the power of words and how we use them. The reading this morning was a Quaker teaching story. The Christian tradition has a lot to say about gossiping. In his letter to the Thessalonians, the Apostle Paul advises his community to make it your goal in life to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands. Proverbs 11 tells us, whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. In the Islamic tradition, these sayings are attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, when 3 persons are together, 2 of them must not whisper to each other without letting the third hear. When you speak, speak the truth. Perform what you promise. It is not worthy of a speaker of truth to curse people. Perhaps my favorite teaching story on the power of words comes from the Jewish tradition. I'll share a version of it adapted from a story written by Shoshana Brownback. The Pillow Full of Feathers. In a small town in Eastern Europe lived a wonderful, kind-hearted man with just one weakness. He talked too much about other people. He could not help himself. Whenever he heard a story about someone he knew, and sometimes about someone he did not know, he just had to tell his friends. Since he was in business, he heard quite a lot of rumors and stories. He loved the attention he got when he shared the stories and was delighted when they laughed because of the way he told them. Sometimes he embellished just a little for effect. Other than this one weakness, he really was a kind, good-hearted man. Every once in a while, he would feel a tinge of discomfort after telling a story. Not regret exactly, but just a little unsettling feeling in the pit of his stomach. He usually shook it off quite quickly. In any case, the stories he shared had really happened, hadn't they? Most of his stories were just innocent and entertaining, weren't they? One day, he found out something juicy about another businessman in town. Of course, he felt compelled to share what he knew with his colleagues, who told it to their friends, who told it to people they knew, who told it to their wives, who spoke to their friends and neighbors. Soon it spread around town like wildfire, until finally the news made it back to the man the story was about. Distraught, this man ran to the rabbi of the town and cried and complained that he was ruined. No one was going to do business with him after this. His good name and his reputation were gone. Now, this rabbi had a feeling he might know who to ask about this. So he summoned the man who loved to tell stories. If he was not the one who started them, he might at least know who did. When the nice man with the weakness for gossip heard from the rabbi how devastated his colleague was, he felt truly sorry. He honestly had not considered it such a big deal to tell this story, because after all, it was true. The rabbi could check out if he wanted. Hearing this, the rabbi sighed. True, not true, that really makes no difference, he told the man. You just cannot tell stories about people. This is all lashon hara, slander. Now the man who started the rumor began to feel truly sorry. What can I do to make it undone, he asked. He sobbed, I will do anything you say. The rabbi looked at him. Do you have any feather pillows in your house? Yes, said the man, but he was truly confused. Do you think my colleague could use a new pillow? He asked. No, said the rabbi. Just bring me one. The man was mystified, but he returned a bit later to the rabbi's study with a nice fluffy pillow under his arm. The rabbi led the man out of his study and up many stairs, and then opened a door at the top of the stairs. They were on the roof of the building. The man grew a little nervous. When the rabbi took out his knife, he became downright scared. But then the rabbi handed him the knife and gestured to the pillow. "Cut it open," he ordered. "But Rabbi, it'll make a mess." "Do as I say," said the rabbi. So the man cut the pillow. A cloud of feathers came out. They covered the man with the knife and the rabbi. They landed on the roof and fluttered in the air. Just then a big gust of wind came and lifted the remaining feathers into the air. The sky was full of feathers. The man watched the fluffy white wisps float over the nearby buildings and down into the streets. It was kind of beautiful, actually. When they had watched the feathers for several minutes, the rabbi turned to the man. "Now bring me back all the feathers," he said, "and stuff them back into your pillow." The man stared at the rabbi in disbelief. "That's impossible, Rabbi. The ones here on the roof, I might get yes, but the ones that flew out into the city are gone, Rabbi. I can't possibly get them all back." "Yes," said the rabbi and nodded gravely. "That is how it is. Once your words leave your mouth, you do not know where they will end up. They fly on the wings of the wind, and you can never get them back." He ordered the man to apologize to the person about whom he had told the story. It was difficult, but it was the least he could do. He ordered him to apologize to the people to whom he had told the story, making them part of his mistake too. It was embarrassing, but with each apology, another person learned the lesson of Lashon Hara and of a pillow full of feathers. When the UU congregation of Central Nassau in Garden City, New York City, was facing a challenging time, things at the church had become pretty stressed, and their minister, Reverend Hope Johnson, of beloved memory, put it, they were not being their best selves. Then, more than ever, how they communicated with one another became pivotal. Reverend Hope turned to her committee on ministry to help. One person told the group about some buttons she had seen in another congregation that said, "Is it true? Is it kind? Will it help?" Just like the 3 sieves, right then, the Committee on Ministry committed to creating buttons like that and wearing them. After a few weeks of wearing the buttons, they asked the board members to join them, then other congregational leaders. Soon, everyone was talking about the buttons, and everyone wanted one. Reverend Hope and the Committee on Ministry led a worship service about the buttons and talked about the ideals of how thoughtful people can communicate with and about each other, even when they disagree. They gave out the buttons. Well, we are not facing a particularly challenging time in our congregation with rumor mills or infighting. The proverbial grapevine is always something that we need to be conscious of. Sometimes we might need to prune it a little, especially in small towns like Provincetown, Truro, and Wellfleet. News travels fast. Much of it is true, some of it is not. Some of it is benign, some malicious. Some truly interesting and informative, some pretty boring, and I'm continually surprised what details of daily life make their rounds. So when we become recipients of this information, we have to decide what to do with it. And when we are confronted with hurtful or upsetting words, we have to decide how to respond. It's actually good to take a look at these behavioral norms when we are not in crisis over them. That's when we can be most thoughtful and least reactive. So this morning, I encourage us to take stock of how we communicate with one another. Not just in this Meetinghouse community, but in the Provincetown community, online, at our workplaces, in our families, in our romantic relationships. We can ask ourselves, what am I getting out of passing on information when it comes to me? Is there any harm that might be done? How do I communicate with the people around me? Do I react too quickly? Do I let things brew and simmer until I build up steam? When I'm annoyed with someone, do I speak to them directly? Or hold a venting session with sympathetic listeners? How would I like to communicate instead? As we begin to think more deeply about the power of our words, we can start making use of those 3 C's. Is it true? Is it kind? Will it help? We can, before we get into any trouble at all, explore what it feels like not to pass on information that we hold, even when we are tempted. We can practice taking a few deep breaths before reacting. We can monitor the tone of our voices in disagreements. We can extricate ourselves from conversations we don't want to be a party to. We can be brave and speak up when we think we can be kind and helpful. And we can hold each other accountable for the ways we talk to each other and about what. Reverend Nancy Arnhold, who began a button campaign in her congregation, the UU Fellowship of Huntington, preached, "I believe that some of the hurt we inflict on each other comes out of thoughtlessness and not paying attention to what comes from our mouths. We are not intentionally hurtful, but we are also not being intentionally kind either. By asking the questions before speaking, is it true? Is it kind? Will it help? We become conscious of what we are saying and doing." And Reverend Hope's congregation in Garden City, things are better now. Great, actually. And they've created a whole button ministry, spreading the tool that has helped them to create an intentionally kinder congregation. They wear their buttons everywhere, and they give them away. If someone asks them about the button they are wearing, they explain why they are wearing it, and then just unpin it and give it to them. Then they get a new one. They've shared the buttons with other new congregations, synagogues, and community groups, and they have begun collecting heartwarming stories of how the buttons have transformed interactions and relationships. When Reverend Hope handed out the buttons in her interfaith clergy group, one of the rabbis started to cry. His father used to say the same thing, he said. Reverend Hope, a friend of Reverend Kate's, passed away in 2020 from complications related to long-term respiratory issues arising from her work as a first responder on 9/11 and the weeks following. What a legacy she leaves behind, though. Perhaps her legacy could include how her 3 questions have transformed this community too. Is it true? Is it kind? Will it help? Amen and blessed be. Question of the week. It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at your dinner table tonight or with friends during the week. If you would like to delve deeper into this topic, please join us for our midweek coffee hour Tuesday at 5. Let us know if you need the link. Here is our question for this week. Which sieve do you need to practice pouring your words through? Which sieve do you need to practice pouring your words through? Thank you for joining us this morning. Go in peace.